For the first time since the Nazis, a German far-right party has won a state election after gaining massive support among younger voters who reportedly became disillusioned with the center-left government currently ruling Germany. The anti-immigration nationalist Alternative for Germany party secured about a third of the vote in one Eastern German state, marking a massive win for a party that only launched in 2013.
This is a big deal for Germany in terms of politics and also for Europe, because as you mentioned, this is the first time that a far-right party, as in this case is Alternative for Germany, has won any kind of election. In this case was a regional or state election in Germany since the Second World War. And Alternative for Germany is a nationalist, anti-immigration, anti-Islam party. It is considered to be on the far right of the political spectrum in Germany, and in those states where it won, the state of Thuringia, and also where it arrived a close second, the state of Saxony, they are considered to be even more extremist, to the point that the leader of the AfD in Thuringia, where the party won, his name is Bjorn Höcke, in the past was convicted twice for using prohibited Nazi slogans. He even said in the past that it would be a great mistake to consider Adolf Hitler the absolute evil in the German political discourse. As you can see, very evocative of those Nazi times. And in this case, despite all that.
Wednesday, 4th of September, Anno Domini 2024. Harnwell here at the helm, filling in for Steve Bannon. So you heard Claudio Lavanga just talking a moment or so ago. I'm talking the AfD here and its candidate that won in Thuringia, using prohibited language. And obviously the media, I'm sure you've all seen this, as have I, the media's all talking about this is the first time a far-right political party has won a state in Germany in the federal elections since the Second World War and the Nazis. My first guest on the show today is Deputy Leader of the Alternative for Deutschland, Beatrix von Storch. Beatrix, good evening to you. Thank you for coming on the show. So my first question is about the extremist label here, because all these terms and all these concepts are always pushed in together. Sort of anti-immigration, anti-Islam automatically makes far right, which is a strange conclusion when you think that the former leader of Die Linke, the left in Germany, Sarah Wagenknecht, polled 15%, and she's sort of taken over the left already on pretty much a left-wing, an economically left-wing platform, but anti-immigration. So the first thing I would like to ask you is, how accurate is it for the mainstream media to portray the results that we saw on Sunday? And just to mention what those results are, explicitly in Thuringia, the AfD scored 33% of the vote. That's a clear win. And in Saxony, coming in with 30%. Those are extraordinary results in a proportional representation system. How accurate, therefore, is this label that these results reflect a rise of extremism and far right, when even the left, one faction of the left, the most popular, I think, perhaps arguably the most arguable? No, in fact, if you think about it, the governing coalition between the left-led, the Social Democrat left coalition with its two coalition partners, the Greens, and the Free Democrats, right? Between them, they got 15%. So the most popular voice now in Germany on the left is, at least in Thuringia, is the BSW. How accurate, therefore, is it to portray an anti-immigration platform as extremist and right-wing?
Well, there you can see how disparate they are. I mean, in Thuringia, we came in first by far, so 10 points ahead of the Christian Democratic Party, which is trying to be the next chancellor. And so they try to label us to not be forced to go into the argument with us. They have no more arguments to fight us, so they try to label us, which makes it far easier. If you can label, especially in Germany, someone as far right, that is very clear that no one wants to talk to someone who is far right, which equals Nazi, which equals the Third Reich. So that's their last desperate effort to prevent, to really come and debate our arguments. We have got very hard arguments, and there are very good reasons for the people to vote for us. And the first and most important issue in the country and in these regional elections were migration crisis, yes, and the impact on Islam, of Islam in our societies. So by labeling us in a bad way, they are trying to, hide that they have no arguments against our approach to politics. And that would mean mainly at the very moment, close our borders, get control of our own borders, because too many people coming in here illegally. They do not use the word illegally, they use the word irregular, but they're illegal. They're coming here without papers, and then they will stay forever, and they will get the German passport after 3 or 5 years. So this is what we're addressing, and they have no answer for different reasons. The Greens for ideological reasons. They just want more migration. They just want more people from all of the world come to Germany. They don't want to stop this. The SPD is too weak, and the liberals are lost. I'm talking about the chancellor in Germany on a federal level, but on the regional level, the issues were the same. So they just don't have any other option to go against us, and this ends up in us winning the election. In Thuringia, again, we came in first, 10 points ahead of CDU, the Christian Democratic Union, and in Saxonia, which is a bit bigger, there we came in very shortly second, so almost first, you can say, 30% plus. So maybe this last number, we had 30%. All the governing parties on the federal level, AfD, in Germany, which is the Greens, the Social Democrats, and the so-called liberals, they together had somewhat like 12%, all three governing parties together. We're at 30% in both those regions. So they're just desperate. And there's something else which is of importance. Even though the governing parties are so desperate and so broken and so ruined and so out of concept and everything, the CDU, the Christian Democratic Party, the other bigger opposition party in the German parliament, they do not really benefit from this. So they're also very, very deep. And so they see that AfD is rising and they run out of arguments.
So look, you're presently a member of the German parliament. You're a former member of the European Parliament. This is your 10th year now as deputy leader of the AfD. Did you ever think that you would see a time, Beatrix von Storch, that between the AfD and the Sarah Wagenknecht grouping, that between the two of you, you would come up with approximately 48% now between your two groupings on what is basically a hard line. It's not extremist, but it's a hard line anti-immigration platform. There is something, and you saw it in the European elections as well, there is something taking place in Germany right now, a movement, a change of heart, a change of mind taking place across Germany right now. So my first question is, did you ever think you would see this situation where two political parties, that's between you and this new populist formation on the left? And it's important just to remember that the Sarah Wagenknecht grouping is a grouping on the left of the populist, anti-immigration, left-wing economic policies. It's a party on the left which has an equally hardline immigration position as yourselves. Did you think that you would get to this point where you basically now have half the German people behind you? And as a consequence of that, can you now say that this cordon sanitaire that the establishment political parties have tried to impose on you has failed as a containment policy? And then finally, Beatrix, my question is this the end for Olaf Scholz?
It should be the end of Olaf Scholz. He should resign, and even with his own coalition, the voices are coming up with this idea because they know they run out of any kind of concept. They never had some, if you ask me, but now it's very obvious they don't have any idea how to run the country. If it comes to the cordon sanitaire, it is, partially breaking away. It's still there. It's still, all around, but people start to question it, especially in those countries where the elections took place. So it is a way to go. We have a way still to go to break this cordon sanitaire down, and I think in the end we will succeed. What I would question a little bit is the way you stress that the leftist populist party, or you can even say left-wing extremists around Sarah Wagenknecht, they are trying to come up with some kind of immigration criticism, and they are anti-immigration there, but not as strong as you made them, because you must know this group around Sarah Wagenknecht, which now also had a very good result in those both elections, they just split off of the left-wing party, the former Communist Party of the GDR, and they supported open borders. I would say 4 weeks ago, they were all in favor of more migrants. They were voting in favor of everything what would make it easier for illegal migrants to come in, to stay here, to get a passport, everything. So the same people who were talking in a different way a few weeks or months ago, they are now shifting on this specific issue to our side and trying to go a bit against this mass migration issue, because they know people are just fed up with it. So I would not rely so much on them. But if you ask me if I would have expected that there would be such a rise on our side with AfD, to be honest, I would say yes. I have expected this from the very minute of the beginning of our party. Why? Because that's just reasonable. What we present as politics is just reasonable. This is what the country needs. We need to stop illegal migration, and we need to stop trying to save the planet by destroying our economy, in transforming our economy into a green economy, without CO2 and all this, climate change rubbish. And so it is just a question of time that the majority of the people will understand that this ruins their life, and there are only two options out. It's either the other parties, so the Social Democrats, the Liberals, the Greens, they will never, and the CDU, the Christian Democrats, they will turn and overtake our program to protect our land and our economy and our people, or AfD will win even with bigger percentage, as we just did, because you can just see that they are bringing our country at the edge of collapse. And this is what people understand more and more. And in the eastern part of Germany, where these elections took place, people are more likely to understand. They are just better in seeing and realizing what is ongoing. As in the western part of Germany, it's a bit more difficult. But even there, they start to understand. And VW, which is our most VW automobile concern, is one of the biggest companies and well known for German wealth and development and everything. They have come up with the message a day after the election, of course, that they are starting to think to close down the fabrication of cars in Germany. in some areas, which would be devastating. That will be a catastrophe for the region and for all of Germany. So people start to understand that this is the reaction of a huge company, which is crucial for our economy and for our people, and they declare we cannot keep up the work like we did because of the policy of all the other parties. So they have just to switch policy. If they don't, we will have and we will win even bigger victories next time.
Beatrix, I know you have to go, but before you do, I must ask you very quickly. The press is quite skeptical of the idea that in Thuringia, at least, there might be some kind of coalition between the AfD and Sarah Wagenknecht's group. Can you shed any light on this? Because they're obviously going to go to the opposition now. Is going to go, the establishment is going to go to extreme measures to try to continue its containment policy on you, which is very difficult when you have a sort of 33% of the vote. Is there a possibility that the anti-immigration, with all you bearing in mind what you said about the transformation that this particular group has made in recent months, but is there any possibility that between the AfD, which has had many years of having a hardline anti-immigration position on the right of the political spectrum, that you might work with this new grouping on the left that at least at the present moment is offering similar sorts of noises on the immigration front?
Well, from our side, if we can approach a specific political topic, for example, migration, and we can join in and make joint decisions and have a majority there, then we are open, of course, to do so. We are not, we don't keep the cordon sanitaire and say we don't talk to those because they are left-wing extremists, which they are. But when it comes to politics and when it comes to specific issues, we are willing to cooperate with everyone, because what is important for us is the country. We put the country first, and what is good for the country, and with a majority, when there's a majority in a parliament to move the country forward and to take good decisions, we will do so. That's the difference to all the others. And one must say that even the Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, which is the name of this leftist group you were talking about, they have already made clear they will not work together with us. So you can sum it up and say the only one who puts the country first and the party second, that's the AfD, and people acknowledge this, and this is why we are winning elections.
Beatrix von Storch, very grateful for you to come on The War Room today. Before you go, where can people go to keep up with developments on this theme?
Well, there are all kinds of, you can follow me. I'm on every single platform. X is not yet banned in Germany and Europe, so we are very happy that this is still possible. And on Instagram and Facebook and everything, you find me if you want to follow. I get the message out every day, several times on all the platforms, and I always work under Beatrix von Storch. I think the name should be shown here.
And I'll quickly mention the Freie Welt as well, a great online portal run by your husband, which is very kind enough to carry, which is run by Sven, which is very kind enough to carry some of my output very occasionally. Beatrix, thanks very much.
This is a very important point. Thank you for reminding me. Of course, Freie Welt is a newspaper which covers all these issues in German, but that can be translated. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thanks for joining us on the show, Beatrix, and we look forward to catching up again with you soon. God bless for now. Moving now to the US domestic political agenda, Cleta Mitchell joins us to give us an update on the debate on whether the Republicans are going to do anything or not with regards to the SAVE Act, whether this is going to be tagged on to this continuing resolution or not. Cleta, good afternoon to you. What's the latest here on this? Really quite, it's not just important, it's absolutely essential. Probably one of the most essential things I think the war room has covered in recent years. It could transform American politics, right?
Well, yes. I mean, what we're seeing, what you're talking about is the SAVE Act, Safeguard American Voter Eligibility. which would correct a problem created by the United States Supreme Court 11 years ago, when it said that the state of Arizona could not get state-specific instructions to require documentary proof of citizenship when registering to vote in Arizona, because they have to use the federal form, and the federal form developed by the Election Assistance Commission just asks you to check a box. Are you a citizen? Yes or no, but no proof. And so we've seen over the decades since that has been in effect, the 22 years, that that people who check the box no, they're not a citizen, they get registered anyway. We saw the state of Pennsylvania admit that their software literally enrolled over 200,000 non-citizens automatically in the database of voters. This came from the Department of Transportation and dumped in over 200,000 non-citizens in the state of Pennsylvania's voter rolls. I mean, I could go on and on about the problems. The SAVE Act was introduced by Congressman Chip Roy with over 200 co-sponsors, and it was passed by the House in July. And the Senate bill was introduced by Senator Mike Lee, and it's sitting there. And this would add that bill to the continuing resolution and require documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote.
Well, look, once you're just taking that sip of water, let me ask you a question on this issue. On my reading of this, that the problem seems to be, by all accounts, that Speaker Mike No Johnson is willing to go through the motions of supporting the tagging on of this SAVE Act onto the CR, but privately he's not very positive on its outcome because he doesn't think he has the votes, and of course that really is an illustration of where the GOP is right now, because it's the GOP that will be the problem on this rather than the Democrats, if you think about it, because it's the GOP that notionally controls the House. They ought to have the arithmetic on this, but they don't. And that, I think, sort of comes back to a point which I find myself saying from time to time, that in America, really, the most important elections are really primaries rather than elections at the ballot box, because Americans need to get rid, if they want to get rid of the globalists, of the rhinos, the time to do that is when they are up for re-selection. That's the whole beauty of having elections every 2 years for Congress. That ought to be an easy thing to do. Somehow we never get round. The MAGA movement never seems to get round to, in the main part, to carrying its potential into actual results. But that's the problem, isn't it? It's a GOP congressman can't be supported to vote for an act that would insist that only American citizens can vote in elections, and that they provide the evidence for that. The proof that voters provide the evidence for this.
Well, there's a lot to unpack in what you just said. And yes, it is true that there are Republicans in the House Republican Conference who vote more like Democrats than they do Republicans. And some of them are very conservative districts. So it does make you wonder why the citizens, the conservatives, the MAGA base of America, why they do not get rid of these incumbent Republicans who are voting against MAGA interests. They don't like President Trump. They don't like his supporters, and yet they keep getting reelected. But that is a problem. But I don't want to remove the blame for Democrats, because all but 5 Democrats in the House voted no against the SAVE Act. And we had all these Democrats who voted against making sure that the District of Columbia doesn't allow non-citizens to vote. So we have problems with the Democrats too.
Okay, Cleta, stand by. We're back in 2 minutes after this short break. And following Cleta, the War Room will actually be proposing a solution of what MAGA might do with regards to its mostly useless representatives.
In these crazy times, there is peace of mind in security. Security for our country, security for our leaders, and security for our families. but you're not financially secure if all your eggs are in one basket. Gold and silver are an excellent way to diversify your savings. They're a hedge against inflation. With Birch Gold Group, you can own physical gold and silver in a tax-sheltered retirement account. Secure your family's savings today. Text Bannon to 989898 and receive a free info kit on gold. Plus, this August only, Birch Gold is giving away free Trump silver coins with any purchase. This brand new one-of-a-kind silver coin features Trump boldly raising his fist in the moments after the attempt on his life. Don't miss your chance to own this special piece of history, a celebration of a leader dedicated to our security, preserved in the security of a precious metals coin. Secure your savings today and get your free Trump silver coins. Text Bannon to 989898 today. That's Bannon to the number 989898. Homes across America are being stolen every day. It's called title theft, and it's why you need to get home title protection from HomeTitleLock.com today. If no one's keeping an eye on your title, then it's just a matter of time until they target you too. Don't fall prey to these thieves. Go to HomeTitleLock.com today and make sure your title is safe. Use promo code Bannon and get a complete title scan of your home's title and your first 30 days of triple lock home title protection for free. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Bannon.
All this nonsense, all this spin, they can't handle the truth.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back. So I was just talking with Cleta Mitchell before the break, and there is something that Americans can do, that the Warren Posse can do in the face of GOP representation that is willfully deaf at times. Two things. Second thing we're going to discuss with Grace Chong in just a moment or two's time. But Cleta, you're telling me that there's an activity, a themed week coming up next week. Tell us a bit about this nation-only Citizens Vote Week. Sounds like a great idea.
It is. We want everybody to focus on the fact that only citizens are supposed to vote in American elections. That is the law. And it is the law in most states. There are some left-wing cities like San Francisco, New York City, others that have adopted the District of Columbia, where you can work for the Chinese Communist Embassy, be Chinese Communist, you can vote in DC elections. Think about that for a moment. But we're having the National Only Citizens Vote Week, September 15th, so starting a week from Sunday through the 20th, through that following Friday. The reason that week has been chosen is because Tuesday, September 17th, is National Constitution and Citizenship Day. It's when we celebrate and commemorate the passage of the United States Constitution by the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia 237 years ago. It celebrates citizenship. It celebrates our Constitution. We want that week, we want citizens all over this country and elected officials and local officials and Congress to focus on fixing our elections so that only citizens vote. So if you will go to our website, www.onlycitizensvotecoalition.com, onlycitizensvotecoalition.com, we have toolkits that people can download. They can figure out what they can do in their counties, their cities, to go to local county commissioners, go to the local election board, go visit your Department of Motor Vehicles, find out if they're illegally registering people who are not citizens. Go to your local post office. I learned today someone was saying that they're issuing passports to people who don't speak English, U.S. passports. You're supposed to be a U.S. citizen to get a passport. It's a proof of citizenship. But we have all these forces where the government bureaucrats have been taking their cues from left-wing activists. We have to stand up. We have to be the ones. And we have a whole set of materials and action items, including talking to Congress about adding the SAVE Act to the continuing resolution. If we don't do something about this, the left-wing progressive Democrats are going to swamp our election with illegals, and we can't let that happen.
Cleta Mitchell, once again, what was that website you read out?
www.onlycitizensvotecoalition.com. Sponsored by a national coalition of over 90 groups. But go sign up to get the newsletter, look at the resources pages, download signs that you can take to your election officials. We'll have draft resolutions, draft letters to the editor. Call into your local radio talk shows, get people in your neighborhood to understand this is a threat. And let's just all make a lot of noise about this. This is kind of like a neighborhood watch, except it's a national non-citizen voting watch.
We're going to hold on to the theme of making a lot of noise and carry it on over to my next guest, Cleta Mitchell. Thanks very much for joining us on The War, and look forward to catching up again with you soon. God bless for now.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Grace Chong, good afternoon to you. We're going to talk about how Americans can make some noise by discussing your app, Bill Blaster. I like to call it Ball Buster, because that's basically what it gives the Warren Posse the ability to do. Tell me something. You were listening to the previous segment there. How can this genius app, which was your idea, which you created, which you put together, how can the Posse use this app to try and get the message through to their representation?
So before I get into Bill Blaster, the app, I just want to start off by saying it's the same old Congress. They wait till the last minute to shove down the CR down our throats and expect us to be grateful that they're attaching the SAVE Act onto it like it's some victory. Whatever happened to those 12 appropriation bills? I know Chip Roy was on earlier this week saying that the SAVE Act is not perfect, but it's a damn good start. And he said that they've worked on 5 out of 12 appropriation bills. Well, that's maybe a decent start. So, we need to, they come back. It's a total scam. They don't deliver on the appropriation bills. They go on to vacation for a month, and then they come back saying, yeah, we don't like to spend all that money, but we need to we must have the CR now. So it's all predictable. The Posse knows. And that's why we need to be calling our representatives every single day, asking them, where are we on these appropriation bills? So call them, ask them where we're at with appropriation bills, but also ask them if you support the SAVE Act being attached on the CR, which is important, call them for that. But make sure to hold them accountable. And, like you said earlier before this segment, call your worthless, useless Republicans and make sure to tell them to hold the line. And now I'll get into the Bill Blaster. So Bill Blaster was created for the Posse, and it's an app where you can virtually call your representatives with virtually one touch. And it's been so successful, and the Posse loves it. So can I just get into where they can go download it?
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
Okay,
yeah.
So just go to billblasterapp.org or warroom.org, or you can just type in Bill Blaster, one word, into the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, and you can, it's all there. So we're really excited. Also, I want to add in that we are working on phase 2, which is where we're going to add in the recent bills, and you can read about the bills, how all of your representatives voted. So we're currently working on that. We're going to add in notifications, a lot of stuff. So download it. We're really excited. But again, it's up to us. We have to keep on calling our representatives every single day. Whatever it is you stand on, you have to let your voices be heard.
Grace, there was an article. I don't know if Dan Viney sent it through a few moments or so ago. I don't know if they're going to have time to put this up on the screen. But it's fresh up in the last few hours on the BBC website. A US man was sentenced to 13 months in prison for 12,000 harassing phone calls to lawmakers. That guy, I don't know anything about this story apart from the headline and the opening words of the article. That guy's a personal hero of mine on that fact alone. 12,000 harassing phone calls. That's one guy alone could make himself a nuisance. If the whole of the War Room Posse literally were to apply 100th of this guy's energy, the needle would move. It would move so quickly. You'd get whiplash from watching it. Grace Chong, once again, where do people go to download the app? I have to note, I tried to do it. It was restricted. I think it's US App Store only. I couldn't do it here in Italy. Otherwise, I would have done. But where do people go once again to download your fantastic app?
So the War Room Posse knows all about pressure campaigns. That BBC article, just imagine all of us doing it all at once. So go to billbusterapp.org or warroom.org, or you can go directly to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and type in Bill Blaster, one word, and download it straight from there. So just do it right now. Start calling, leave a message if you have to, but session is back on the 9th, and we got to get on top of it, all of it.
Grace Chong, thanks very much for coming on the show today, and I look forward to catching up again with you soon. Best of luck. God bless.
Thank you.
We've got a quick video now to introduce us into Colonel Derek Harvey.
Linda Sun and her husband, Chris Hugh, walked out of federal court on Tuesday, released on bail. A 40-year-old U.S. citizen, Sun pleaded not guilty to taking millions in payments and gifts from Chinese officials in exchange for influencing the highest levels of New York state government for years. Her husband pleading not guilty to money laundering. Governor Kathy Hochul's office says Sun was hired a decade ago and fired in March of last year amid allegations of misconduct.
I'm furious and I'm outraged and absolutely shocked. The second we discovered some levels of misconduct, we fired her. We alerted the authorities.
In a 65-page indictment, prosecutors allege Sun blocked Taiwanese officials from having access to the governor's office, drafted unauthorized invitation letters to fraudulently get visas for Chinese officials, and changed messaging regarding issues of importance to China. Kickbacks went to her husband's businesses, prosecutors say, to fund a lavish lifestyle. Multi-million-dollar homes in Long Island and Hawaii, cash, and luxury cars, including a 2024 Ferrari Roma, like this one, that's priced over $260,000. The government says it will seize all of it, including more than $130,000 in a safety deposit box. The couple and their family also received expensive gifts, travel expenses paid, and tickets to shows, according to the indictment. And on multiple occasions, specialty salted ducks prepared by a Chinese official's personal chef. The DOJ calling Sun's actions a direct threat to national security.
The way Americans think about national security is being corrupted by foreign adversaries who want to tell us how to think and how to act. And that is a national security threat.
These charges are disappointing.
Outside of court, Sun's attorney defending his client.
We are looking forward to exercising our right to a speedy trial and addressing these accusations in the forum where it's most appropriate, which is a court of law.
I liked the talking head there saying that it was a national security threat that a foreign government wants to tell Americans how to think and how to act. Well, of course, that's the job of the US government. Colonel Harvey, do you believe Governor Hochul's protestations that she had no idea what was going on?
Well, I think that may be true, although all of the state leaders, senior leaders in New York and most of the other states have been briefed numerous times by the Federal Bureau of Investigation about the significant counterintelligence threat posed by China, our number one threat, and how they leverage people of ethnic background from China. Either they were born here, raised here, or overseas in China that emigrate here. And, that's about 50% of the threat posture for China. The other part of it, about 50%, is Chinese active recruitment and development of sources and friends of China. Perhaps, vice presidential candidate Tim Walz falls into that category, that is done over years and years to try and gain influence, gain knowledge and access so that they can steal our secrets and our research and data.
Of course, the problem is that you have a lot of Americans of Chinese descent with Chinese names who are 100% loyal to the United States of America and not to China. So what on earth can be done here because obviously no one's calling for outright suspicion of anyone with an ethnic Chinese background, but there are also people coming in to America who are quite willing to be spies and act for the CCP's greater interests. So as someone with a military background, what sort of things beyond what's being done at the moment would you like to see an incoming Trump administration approach here to resolve this problem of CCP infiltration across America's political class?
Well, there have been numerous studies done. One was done by the House Republican Caucus in October of, I believe, 22, that addressed a whole range of issues. Our Chinese Commission has approached these issues. The Congressional China Commission has approached them. But here's the thing. This is a significant problem. It's the largest counterintelligence and domestic spying and influence operation that the FBI faces. They are under-resourced, for one. They are also not prioritizing it to the degree that I would think, because they continue to do other things that are of lesser priority, like going after J6 people, rather than, going after these Chinese threats across the country. It's a prioritization effort. It's a matter of will for our domestic focus, which is the FBI, which primarily has it. But, here's the other thing. These briefings are done by the FBI and other organizations to universities, to corporations, to large banks, to think tanks, as well as local, meaning counties and town and city administrators and leaders, as well as state officials. Too often, these warnings and the indicators that they should be looking for are ignored, or they just are quickly forgotten. And these people too often become witting or unwitting. And with the money and influence that they can throw around, the Chinese government, look at what they did for these two people. It's millions of dollars of wealth thrown their way. Favors, Honolulu homes, even getting down to messaging, the delivery of salted Peking duck to their homes. It's quite an influence effort. And I'll just say, when they invite someone to China and they pay for the trips and they hand them red envelopes with lots of cash to spend on the trip and they wine and dine them, China doesn't do this out of the goodness of their heart. They do it because they want to gain some influence either now or down the road in a decade or two. That's how they operate.
So there's no such thing as a free Peking duck. I think the point you mentioned about prioritizing resources is a very good point, and it's not a facetious point either. The FBI is, and this is not denied, it's not contested, it's expending resources on following, on persecuting, on surveilling little old grannies whose crime to the US state is that they go and pray the rosary in Latin. It's targeting traditionalist Catholics, as opposed to young kids, for example, who want to shoot the president, or spies who are seeking to advance the influence of the CCP in America. America need not do anything else. Need necessarily introduce any new legislation or give its secret services any extra powers than it has at the moment. It just needs to, the one thing it could do to make the situation better, if I've understood you correctly, is simply prioritize how it exercises its resources in a more politically prudent way, in a less politically woke fashion. Is that what you're saying, Colonel Harvey?
Absolutely correct. And not going after school board sessions where parents complain about what's going on in a school board. Let's review a couple of things. Congressman Swalwell, who served on the House Intelligence Committee, had his relationship with a Chinese agent. Her name was Fang Fang. The driver for Barbara Feinstein, who was also on, I believe, the Senate Intelligence Committee, was a Chinese agent. One can go down the list of these that just happened to be discovered after decades of, working for Chinese influence or acquiring information. And China can use very benign information. Like this Miss, Linda Sun. She worked for the Labor Department in New York State. What access to that information could have been? How could that have been transferred to China for their gain? They have very, very, very capable ways of leveraging even what might seem to be, very innocuous information.
Colonel Harvey, that's perfect, and that is literally all we have time for today. Thank you for joining us on the show today. We look forward to catching up again with you soon. My simple hearts as always on the live chat for folks who are following us, and we'll be back at 10 o'clock tomorrow. God bless for now.